Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, the show about building a healthier relationship with technology. Now here's your host, R. Blank.
Today's conversation is such an important one for parents, educators, and anyone trying to raise grounded kids in a screen-saturated world. I'm joined by Dr. Sajita Setia, a physician and researcher in digital well-being who has worked across leading academic institutions and medical education settings, and who now focuses on helping families and schools build healthier, more intentional relationships with technology. Dr. Sajita has a rare ability to translate complex research into practical, compassionate guidance that actually works in real life. We're going to explore what healthy digital habits really look like, how screens impact children's sleep, mood, and behavior, and where realistic changes can make a meaningful difference. I'm really glad to have her with us here today. Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, Dr. Sajita.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So you consult with parents, you consult with schools. What is the nature of the consulting work?
So I help families, mostly children directly and also through their parents, set up healthy habits at home, in school, and everywhere around, wherever they go, even in their friend's home, uh, to deal with technology in the right way, such that it enhances their well-being. It prevents any mental health harms through technology, and it makes them thrive in the modern digital world by optimum use of technology. Um, right now, technology is dominating our world, and now, especially with AI, it's, I would say, one of the largest unintended human experiment with technology, which will deeply impact our children. Everybody's clueless how the future would unfold. And if we can look back and learn the lessons from the past, especially regarding social media and how deeply it has affected our lives, especially those of our children, and has modulated their behavior, their identity, we can be prepared and apply the same lessons to the AI. So I'm on a mission to educate as many families as possible to make them come out of the guilt trap, because generally it's just finger pointing on schools, on physicians, on clinicians, and on parents, but the real ownership is lacking. And who is struggling are our children, and of course the parents who are clueless on how they can help.
Something in that answer really stood out to me, which you mentioned the guilt trap. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So there are studies to show that if parents are made aware of parenting practices, especially screen time affecting their children, and if they are made aware in such a way which is less empowering but more finger pointing, it actually further jeopardizes their relationship with their children. And this is exactly what has happened around so many families. Parents are already living with tremendous guilt trap because screens are the savior. At a lot of times, imagine a toddler waiting in doctor's clinic, and we would want our child to be responsible, keeping in mind there are other sick patients and children. We would end up giving screens to our children. And that is not a parental fault, but unfortunately, that's how habits form. And oftentimes, throughout different age groups, parents have given screens to children, sometimes just to be able to put food on the table. And most of the times it's not parents' fault. I would say none of the parents would give intentionally, okay, here's Instagram, here's Roblox, this is for you. You should start playing and play on and be on video games for 10 hours. None of the parents would do that. But they end up living with that guilt, lacking the communication skills to form a connection with their children, how they can help them in their digital life. And I would say everybody's unprepared. I'm not saying that it's intentionally done by clinicians or by teachers. It just happens because it's such an automated reaction to safeguard themselves. And this is what I meant, because I'm also a mom of a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. I have given screens to my children many a times, even thinking that it's actually good for them. It's digital learning. But
Hmm.
there's a fine line between learning and leisure. So it just takes seconds before homework becomes YouTube binge watching. And we are all aware of that.
So, what is the nature of the science that you apply to this consulting work? In other words, what is the science telling us, and you in particular, that you then help apply to people's actual lives and their relationships with technology?
So the science of screen, how it works, that the first step is we need to name it. Just like socio-emotional learning, we need to learn to name our emotions, dissociate from our emotions. Like even if we hate something, we are not hatred. We hate something which is really ugly and bad, but that is not us. So we need to name it properly. And that exactly applies to digital health. We need to name it, phrase it as a game. So naming it basically moves the guilt and the blame away from children and parents. So if we say, children are addicted, parents don't care, that is basically leading to all the problems. Children are not addicted to screens or gaming apps or social media. They are being manipulated by a highly commercial industry, which is tapping on their attention. So we need to name it properly. It is manipulation. It is done intentionally in a very virtual world, and it is not meant for children. Children, of course, lack self control. It's not their fault, it's biology. So we need to name it properly. And once children are given the right education, they are liberated. It's the guilt trap that is so harmful for children, and we have to be careful. Even parents have to be careful. We have to avoid using those terminology like you're addicted, because the child has to live up with that label throughout
Mm.
their life, and it would tremendously affect their self-esteem. So we need to name it, and the best possible way how it works, and it has worked really well in our research setting across schools and universities, dealing with adolescents, pre-teens, as well as young adults, is we name it as a game. So technology is designed to make you lose track of time. If you want to win, you need to know the strategies to win the game, because we are often playing a game with technology without even knowing the game rules. So, of course, we are going to lose. Nobody has told us the game rules, but children are just given technology to learn without actually knowing how they can use technology in the right way. So, I would say the first step is to name it. And after that, of course, the game follows. We teach them the strategies. And then after we name it, I have other strategies, like I call it move it. So you move it away from your eyesight. It's like out of sight, out of mind. Because keeping phone next to your bedroom or on the study station is like keeping a chocolate bar when you are on a treadmill. It's just mean to expect that for children, especially for children, they would end up sleeping at night if the food is if the phone is next to them,
Hmm.
or they would end up being focused in their homework when the devices or the other distractions are next to them. So we need to move it, but we need to educate them that this is the winning strategy, to move it out of sight. It's not like we don't trust you and we are not going to take your phone away. We are just teaching you strategies how to win the game, and you can use it when it's the right time. And then we have to team it up. So the third strategy is like parents and children have to be together, because what we found in our research was, especially in preteens, self-control is still limited or in the early adolescence phase. So I would say from 10 to 14 years, those are really good foundational years. And unfortunately, those are also the years when children receive their first smartphone without any education. And that is leading to a lot of problems that we see today. So in our research, what we found was for during the early stages of adolescence years or the preteens, if we educate them, and when we surveyed after education, after workshops, after lots of discussion back and forth, 50% of the students are ready to leave their phone outside when they go to bed, or leave their phone or devices at another place when they're reading or studying. The rest of the 50%, we need them to pair up with their parents. So that means they need boundaries at home. So yes, education through schools, definitely, it has a huge potential. Media literacy, AI literacy. But I would say 50%, we also need boundaries. Everybody needs boundaries, but for the optimum effects, even if we educate children, it may not work unless parents have proper communication, connection, and boundaries in place. So that I would say this is a 3-step process. We name it, we move it, and then we time it. We time it with teaming up with parents.
Do parents play a role in terms of modeling good behavior in your system?
Absolutely. So if parents are spending tremendous time on screens, especially for leisure, but even for work, that they don't maintain eye contact when their child talks to them, it would definitely affect how screens are being used by their children. And a lot of time, the biggest protective factor in making sure children's digital well-being and mental well-being is the connection with their parents. So parents definitely play a very big role. I would say for younger kids, parents are the best toys. The connection, the love, the warmth, that is the best toy any parent can give to a child. We don't need to spend money on our children to please them. We just need to give them quality time with lots of eye contact, lots of connection, communication, 100% non-judgmental time where a child is not judged. The child has no fear or shame in sharing anything with the parent. So when we start with that relationship, I would say we can protect almost all of the children. So parental education and training is an integral part in making sure that the children thrive in digital age.
Do you apply similar models with all of your clients, or do the particular solutions vary from family to family?
They definitely vary from family to family, especially now in the modern world. A lot of children are staying in 2 homes, like they have one home with their mom and another one with dad. So often it's generally the moms who are extra careful. And the complaint that we hear from moms are that dads are not careful. It's basically, yes, I don't give devices, I don't give gaming platforms, I don't buy those Roblox coins. It's done by the dad, and dads are not careful. And I would say probably to some extent it could be true, but children are really clever and they're like clay. You can mold them in any way. So instead of saying that, because that would also affect a child way more, seeing the conflict between the parents. But if one of the parent is very particular with connection, with communication, the love is always going to win. The child will end up following the footsteps. So it is never a worry, but problems become problems because we overthink, and that's how they look like problems, but they are not problems. So I would say yes, every family is different. Especially in Asian families, I would say children are really pampered by grandparents. So parents would generally complain, no, it's not us, it's our parents. And in my generation, we respect our parents a lot. Often we can't really criticize them or tell them no, and I think it also happens across all families to some extent. So that's also where it ends up. But I think, again, proper communication with your own parents, setting up boundaries, and setting up boundaries together as a family. If the family is together, I would say rules should apply to everybody. It's not like just for the children, they are not allowed to take phones to their rooms. It has to apply to parents. Otherwise, they won't be taken seriously and children would just try to bypass the rules. They can sneak in their phone. It's not difficult at all.
So you've mentioned a couple of times now not bringing your phone to bed, which is something I advise for completely different reasons, but I obviously agree with. What are some other examples of common behaviors that you find yourself recommending to your clients?
So, delaying smartphone use is strongly advocated. Uh, I know it's
Until
not a common practice.
until what age?
Okay, as per the advocates like Jonathan Haidt, and who's the author of Anxious Generation, he would recommend till 15 we should not be giving smartphones, until 16 we should not be giving social media. If it is doable, I would strongly advocate for same, but I wouldn't say 15 is a strict number. For my 15-year-old, he did receive his first smartphone when he was 15, but he's a very different child. Like my 10-year-old, my daughter has already started pestering me for a smartphone. So every child is different. Their
Mm-hmm.
emotional maturity is different. And I would tell you, especially those children who are nagging their parents all the time for a smartphone, they are more likely to misuse it than use it. So parents do keep in mind. And parents do not need smartphone for connection. And I would say this is the biggest gap in digital world right now. We have very limited choices for parents. So I do agree with the rule 15 plus for phones and 16 plus for social media. I think it's practically very difficult in the real life scenario. And I would agree, 100% agree to that, where parents struggle. So for my 15-year-old, he was given a smartwatch and I tried to convince him. It wasn't hard. Of course, on and off, once in a year or often he would ask for a smartphone. But I would convince him, no, smartwatch is cool. And he agreed. Smartwatch is cool. It doesn't have social media and texting is harder, but it looks cool. And it's basically for calls, which should be the main mode of communication. It's just that children are so used to texting. That time they had an option in New Zealand that smart watches can work without a smartphone. And that happened like maybe 4 or 5 years back. Right now, late 2025, I went across literally all the providers. I couldn't get a smartwatch which could function without a smartphone. And now I ask all those advocates and those who say, oh, parents are giving phones too early, what choices do parents have? I'm literally pleading to technology. Think about children, think about parents, think about their safety. Technology is evolving way faster than our preparedness. And now it's the
Yeah.
same thing happening with AI. So there are very limited choices. So my 10-year-old has agreed to be on a dumb phone. There are flip phones. There are options. They are not common. Like literally, I had to wait for a dumb phone. So dumb phones are not common. It's just smartphones everywhere. But even if you decide to give a phone to a 10-year-old or even a 9-year-old, so there are ways around it. And I wouldn't say any parent is a bad parent or a good parent for making such a decision. Whether a parent gives a phone at 10, 9, or 15, it doesn't matter. As long as you're prepared, you have the proper precautions in place, it can be really safe. Like there is a safe surfer, which would actually block use of social media or any apps which could be manipulative and alert the parents. So my 15-year-old has his phone protected by a safe surfer. You just have to plan it well in advance. Like it can only be used before you open the phone box. So there are some limitations, but if you research, there are options around. So it's not like smartphones are bad. Yes, they are bad. They are really bad if you just hand it over to a child without any boundaries or precautions. But if you do in the right way, they can turn out really good in maintaining communication and tracking your child and ensuring they are safe. And at the same time, making sure that they use it in a manner that actually boosts their health and does not jeopardize it.
So, in your work with schools, I'm curious, when a school brings you in, is it to help modify the school environment, or is it to help train the children how to better interact with technology when they're outside of school?
So all this while till last year, all the programs were done in a research setting where we were testing it out, which model works best. And it's not easy because schools have limited resources to run workshops on media literacy on an ongoing basis. It's much needed. They understand teachers are overwhelmed. I explored a lot of models, and teachers were ready, principals were ready, but there were at times that they didn't want to take extra workload without being it a part of curriculum. So where I'm struggling right now is actually to get it within the standard curriculum so that it becomes mandatory for all the students, which will take time. So what I did in the in the meantime, which has worked really well, and I would strongly recommend schools to consider it, because real life implementation is always a challenge. We know something is needed, but how to introduce it without it becoming a burden is equally important. So the model that really worked was the peer-based mentoring. So we trained, let's say, year 9 and 10 students, selected leaders. After running workshops with them, we appointed some selected leaders who ran workshops for year 7 and 8. Peer-based mentoring in this situation can be really helpful because children after a certain age, they learn a lot from their peers. It's the same like adult and adolescent based education. So instructor or a coach plays a role, but peers play really good role as well. And that's why group-based discussion, project-based discussions are really thriving in schools for good outcomes, for good
That's
learning
interesting.
outcomes. So
When you
there are
say
models.
peer, yeah,
Mhm.
when you say peer for a seventh grader, is the peer also a seventh grader, or are they older?
Slightly older would be
Okay.
preferred. So we could start running, let's say, with grade 10 students who would end up training grade 8 students. So this could be one. Every school already has, to some degree, some peer-based mentoring in most parts of the world. So it's not difficult to implement it. It's just that finding the right opportunity and the time and, modulating it for your school curriculum, that would need some work, but it can be done. But of course, it would need presence of teachers as facilitators. And those students who are peer-based mentor, they learn a lot of leadership skills, which is also very good for them.
Yeah,
The
I
learning
imagine.
outcomes also did vary by age and by gender. Like girls and boys had different outcomes, but they were largely similar. So older teens in general, they have more self-control. They are more driven to change behavior. And younger teens, as I said, would need slightly more involvement from the parents. So parental education is really important for younger teens as well as for preteens.
In these age groups that you work with, do you find oh, I'm trying to think how to ask this, that the children are aware that the technology is having some level of negative impact on them, or is this really more coming from the parents and the school teachers and administrators?
No, unfortunately, children are not aware. And even if they are deep down, they didn't want to confess or they didn't want to share about it. It took them some time. And we don't start with smartphones and technology in workshop one. We start with socio-emotional learning because The problem is children resort to technology, phone, gaming, social media when they cannot manage their emotions. So, for them, learning to manage their emotions is very important, and for them to love themselves. So we start with, your unconscious behavior, because a lot of time reaching out to remote, your phone, even for adults, it's largely unconscious. It's a comfort reflex. So we are bored, we are lonely, we want to avoid a social interaction, we reach out to our phone. And that is a very important concept. But to teach that concept, we have to teach them, your conscious mind, your conscious thought process, your unconscious. And a lot of time, the self talk, which is often negative, which goes on in their head, it's very hard for a child to understand what is going on. And often when I ask them the cognitive triangle, I show them, your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior, I give them certain scenario. Think back last time when you were nervous, what you were thinking. 9 out of 10 children cannot recall what they were thinking, because mindfulness, yes, breathing techniques, all that are taught in schools, but they are not taught how to soothe their emotions, how to feel better. So, and this is exactly what the recent policy statement from American Academy of Pediatrics that was released in January 2026. And the previous policy was 10 years back. It's like largely outdated. In 2016, technology was on a very different platform. And this is exactly what the AAP's recent policy statement says. It's the connection and the socio-emotional learning that should happen before they are taught how to use technology mindfully. So digital health is a new domain. People have started talking about it. Unfortunately, it's still not under WHO's or other child organizations domain as a different category of health. We still focus on mental, physical, and spiritual health or emotional health. We don't really talk about digital health. But digital health and mental health go hand in hand. They overlap and they influence each other tremendously.
And I imagine physical health too, right? Because of
Absolutely.
the sedentary associations of it. You're generally not being very active if you're using technology. You're also not being social, which has a negative impact on your physical health.
Absolutely. Physical health. Just to give you an example, when I was doing medicine or when I was practicing, we rarely heard about 9-year-old or 10-year-old coming with neck pain, sore neck, sore back.
Tech neck,
And now,
yeah.
their posture is so odd all the time. They have pain around their thumb, their arms, their back. And deep down, they know, most of the children know it's because of constant phone use or laptop. But of course, even when a clinician is trying to advise, they're like, no, it's not because of my phone. I have seen that in real practice. So unfortunately, yes, absolutely. Physical effect has also been affected. Sedentary lifestyle, weight gain, and it's also related to, like we end up binge eating, comfort eating when we are watching television or being on devices. But mental health, especially because it is often overlooked. Like it's easy to see somebody putting weight, somebody complaining of pain, but
Hmm.
it's difficult to see what's going on in their head. And it is often overlooked until it becomes too serious or it manifests as some physical problem.
Hmm.
So, for children, learning to regulate their emotions is very important in digital health also. And once they know how to regulate their emotions, they have better options than just reaching out to their phone or playing games or being on social media. And giving them goals in real life, goal setting is important. Empowering them, learning to love themselves is so important. Being kind to themselves. So once we introduce these concepts, they are much more willing to love themselves, take care of themselves, be kind to themselves by keeping their phone away. Because most of the children, I would say almost everybody, even those at the back who are always, playing games and not paying attention, once they are made aware that who is winning by making you lose track of time, sleep, focus, productivity, who is making money out of your attention, they learn it. They don't
Mark
want to be
Zuckerberg.
target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the types of results that you see with your patients or clients, and how long does it take to start realizing them? I'm actually really curious to hear, because the emotional support training that you provide initially, that I found that really interesting, that would be kind of the foundational element of this system. And so I imagine there are some results pretty rapidly, but that it takes time to actually see the full set of results.
So, the one tactic which is so helpful, and I would request each and every parent to try it for immediate results. Results will be seen within weeks, it won't take months, sometimes within days, is keeping their device, all devices, not just phones, even laptops, tablets, outside their bedroom. It is a
Mhm.
very simple trick. It doesn't cost any money. It just needs that realization. Is phone parking? Everybody parks their phone in the same family, whether grandparents, whether parents. If you can include a dad who lives somewhere else, it's well and good. But if you can't, it's fine. As long as each and every member parks their phone, or at least majority of the adults and the children, and all children, of course, they park their phones. And if they don't have a phones, then tablets or laptops, whatever they have, at one place, like a charging station, same like, this is where we keep our shoes, so this is where we keep our phones. Just find any place. It will change your relationships with your children, because they would get proper sleep, their behavior will be much better. I mean, yes, theoretically, most parents think that their children are getting good sleep, but apparently they are not. A lot of time, the behavior problems are just what we see on the surface. And proper sleep can regulate a lot of behavior. It can also give children the calm mind to think critically for themselves. Otherwise, they are not able to think critically. All other guidance, coaching, uh, can happen later. Maintain connection. Of course, with older teens, I have a 15-year-old and I know how hard it is to convince them. So just don't start a rule. Okay, today everybody's parking phone outside. No, start with connection. If your child is into gaming, because I hear this often from parents that they are even scared to start a conversation, because often it ends up being ugly, and they don't want to spoil their children's mood or their mood. So they rather keep quiet. My child is playing games, that's fine. At least there are no arguments, there are no fights in the house. But it's not good. You are losing your child like that. So start an activity where you can be involved with your child. Now for preteens, it's much easier. So as I said, they are like clay. They are easier to start a connection with. They still long for their parents. I mean, all children long for their parents, but they are not shy in communicating that they want their parents' attention and time. But older children, older teens, they want to be independent, and they appear moody, aggressive, but deep inside they are very lonely. They are longing for parents' love. They are longing to be called. And sometimes they are just longing to hear their mom's voice across the door. Leave your PlayStation and come and help me make dinner. Trust me, they're longing. When I have spoken to children, it is so heartbreaking to hear that they actually long for attention, but they feel that they are also equally scared. They don't want to upset their parents, but they don't know, because often the words they come out of their mouth, they don't intend to say that. They never plan, okay, I'm going to be mean, I'm going to say this to my mom or dad. But what's going on in their head, in their minds, with all the algorithmic content that they have watched and that has shaped their identity, parents need to know it. So if your child games all day, start gaming with your child. Do something so that you can get to know them, what they are, and slowly bridge the connection. Even if they give you 10 minutes of your time, be as kind as you can. Try to ignore if the behavior is rude. It's not the time to fix their behavior. After they have gotten enough sleep, they are rested, just 1 week of good sleep, 8 to 10 hours of sleep, can change your child's behavior tremendously. And I would say 80 to 90% of the teens are literally sleep deprived at this stage. And most of the problems that we see, lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, being moody, aggressive, feeling low in mood, can be resolved by just good sleep hygiene. So yeah, simple techniques like this can boost a lot of family conflicts that we see today, but results take time. Like overall, if you really want to see improvement in their school, their productivity, their sports, their grades, that would take months. So we need to be patient for that. But I would say 3 months is a realistic time to see a change, if there's work involved from both sides. So not just children, also parents, equal
Yeah.
work involved in forming a connection, a bridge. Go for walks, involve them in chores, involve them in making dinner, ask them, take them shopping, buy something that they enjoy eating, their favorite dish, buy the ingredients and make it together at home. So these are the simple tips, and you would have to work hard, but it will pay you throughout your life because your child is going to thrive. They just have few years before they go university and they are almost totally independent. So these are the crucial years. We may have to pay in. Parents have to give up their ego, but I guarantee parents, you will become a better version of yourself. Your child will make you a better person, and you will be thankful for that.
Well, Dr. Sajita, I want to thank you for taking the time today to join me on the Healthier Tech podcast. This has been uh, I, very insightful, but also you're very positive about the potential for people to actually cope with these pressures from technology, and I really appreciate that kind of tone and that kind of perspective on this issue. So I want to thank you very much for coming here and sharing your thoughts.
No problem. It was such a great pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for having me. Thank you again.
And to all the listeners, Dr. Sajita is on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and we have all of those links in the show notes. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Healthier Tech podcast. Hit follow on your favorite app. And if you're ready to take control of your tech wellness, visit shieldyourbody.com. Use code POD to save up to 15% on tools that help you live healthier in a wireless world.